Everybody, we are on day 163 of our Bible in a Year series, continuing on in Psalms. Psalms 26 today. And without any further ado, hesitation, we'll jump straight in. We are reading out of the Christian Standard Bible. If you are interested, I'll link in the description to the actual Bible that I have. It's a CSB Apologetic Study Bible. So, it's good stuff. Chapter 26. Vindicate me, Lord, because I have lived with integrity and have trusted in the Lord without wavering. Test me, Lord, and try me. Examine my heart and mind, for your faithful love guides me, and I live by your truth. I do not sit with the worthless or associate with hypocrites. I hate a crowd of evildoers, and I do not sit with the wicked. I wash my hands in innocence and go around your altar, Lord, raising my voice in thanksgiving and telling about your wondrous works. Lord, I love the house where you dwell, the place where your glory resides. Do not destroy me along with sinners, or my life along with men of bloodshed, in whose hands are evil schemes, and whose right hands are filled with bribes. But I live with integrity. Redeem me and be gracious to me. My foot stands on level ground. I will bless the Lord in the assemblies. Short and sweet. Chapter 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom should I dread? When evildoers come against me to devour my flesh, my foes and my enemies stumbled and fell. Though an army deploys against me, my heart will not be afraid. Though a war breaks out against me, I will still be confident. I have asked one thing from the Lord. It is what I desire, to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, gazing on the beauty of the Lord and seeking him in his temple. For he will conceal me in his shelter in the day of adversity. He will hide me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Then my head will be high above my enemies around me. I will offer sacrifices in his tent with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Lord, hear my voice when I call. Be gracious to me and answer me. My heart says this about you. Seek his face. Lord, I will seek your face. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not leave me or abandon me, God of my salvation. Even if my father and mother abandon me, the Lord cares for me. Because of my adversaries, show me your way, Lord, and lead me on a level path. Do not give me over to the will of my foes, or false witnesses rise up against me, breathing violence. 4 false witnesses. I am certain that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart be courageous. Wait for the Lord. Chapter 28. Moving right along. I do have some notes I want to bring up in the last 2 chapters specifically. Chapter 28. Lord, I call to you, my rock. Do not be deaf to me. If you remain silent to me, I will be like those going down to the pit. Listen to the sound of my pleading when I cry to you for help, when I lift up my hands toward your holy sanctuary. Do not drag me away with the wicked, with the evildoers who speak in friendly ways with their neighbors, while malice is in their hearts. Repay them according to what they have done, according to the evil of their deeds. Repay them according to the work of their hands. Give them back what they deserve. Because they do not consider what the Lord has done, or the work of his hands, he will tear them down and not rebuild them. Blessed be the Lord, for he has heard the sound of my pleading. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart celebrates, and I give thanks to him with my song. The Lord is my strength, is the strength of his people. He is the stronghold of salvation for his anointed. Save your people, bless your position, shepherd them, and carry them forever. Chapter 29. I forget how long this. Okay, yeah, I'll read through this and then we'll talk about it. I do have some stuff I want to add onto this here. 29. Ascribe to the Lord, you heavenly beings, ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. The voice of the Lord is above the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord above the vast water. The voice of the Lord in power. The voice of the Lord in splendor. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord shatters the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon skip like a calf, and Sirion like a young wild ox. So notice they're bringing up these other two places, Lebanon and Sirion. The voice of the Lord flashes flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shakes the wilderness. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth and strips the woodlands bare. In his temple all cry, Glory. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord sits enthroned, King forever. The Lord gives his people strength. The Lord blesses his people with peace. So, this is a psalm of praise to the Lord, talking specifically about his control over the weather. But this psalm is a counter to the Canaanite beliefs. The location of this storm was in Lebanon. We saw that. I pointed it out there in verse 5. It says it again in verse 6. Lebanon, Syria. These are the domains of the storm god Baal. But this is saying that it was Yahweh, not Baal, who, and quote here, flashes flames of fire in verse 7. So this is kind of getting at, there was a lot of thought around there in the time that people had, or not people, though there were specific gods of specific regions, and there's you can actually do a study on this. I've looked at it a little bit, but I haven't done a ton. The idea that there's like regional spirits and like things like that. There's kind of interesting stuff, but that's not for this. But the idea here, they believe that Baal was the storm god for this area, and the psalm is saying, nope, this is Yahweh. Yahweh has control over everything. So this is putting Yahweh, God, capital G, above all the other little g gods. Okay, now Psalm 30. This is one that I think is really cool. So we see this. This is a psalm that is written by David. It is attributed to being written by David, but this is also a psalm that is, if you're watching, you can see it says at the top top of the little excerpt that we're reading, it's a dedication song for the house of David. But that's talking about the temple. But David had not built the temple. He arranged for some things to be collected to help with the building of the temple, but he was not allowed to build the temple. So even though he couldn't build it, he was doing this in preparation, knowing that God was going to fulfill what he had said and build a temple through his son Solomon. So this is that we've talked about, having faith in God even when you don't see it. Something like David knew he was never going to see this, but he still had the faith. Okay. We can also see, I got another note here, in the contents of this psalm, it actually indicates that it was written after David's sin of numbering the people, which we saw that in Second Chronicles, I believe. I believe it's Second Chronicles. Anyways, there's some indication in the text that this actually happened This was written after that. Okay, Psalm 30. I will exalt you, Lord, because you have lifted me up and have not allowed my enemies to triumph over me. Lord my God, I cried to you for help, and you healed me. Lord, you brought me up from Sheol. You spared me from among those going down to the pit. Sing to the Lord, you his faithful ones, and praise the holy name. For his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor a lifetime. Weeping may stay overnight, but there is joy in the morning. Now, I do want to hone in kind of on this verse 4 and 5. There's two attributes here of God that are talked about. One is his anger, and one is his favor. Um, Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. And we see these things produce. Camera froze. They produce discipline and blessing. Now, keep this in mind. This is an important lesson here. As God's people, God's discipline is short compared to a lifetime of enjoying His blessing. And that's kind of the big point of this psalm. And we see that in the life of David. Think about this particular situation, or the situation we're talking about, where David had discipline from God because of the sin that he had done. It happened, and then it was done, and moved on. But there was a lot of blessing in David's life because of him seeking after God. Excuse me. So, something to keep in mind. Verse 6. When I was secure, I said, I will never be shaken. Lord, when you showed your favor, you made me stand like a strong mountain. When you hid your face, I was terrified. Lord, I called to you. I sought favor from the Lord. What gain is there in my death if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it proclaim your truth? Lord, listen and be gracious to me. Lord, be my helper. You turn my lament into dancing. You remove my sackcloth and clothe me with gladness so that I can sing to you and not be silent. Lord, my God, I will praise you forever. And that is it for the reading. There's some shorter ones. I think I'm going to try to... I've got my notes with me as I'm reading through these. I'm going to try to pull up some of my notes and throw little tidbits in there as we're reading through, especially with the Psalms because they're shorter. But for today, on to the questions. Question 1. Psalm 26's appeal for God to test David's heart. How does this bold request challenge us to examine our own pursuit of integrity and reliance on God's judgment over human approval? Well, I think we can see it as David submitting himself to God, not caring so much about the approval of man, but seeking the approval of God, asking God to examine him, and taking judgment if that's needed. Not necessarily holding on to just getting approval from man, but taking judgment from God if that's something that is warranted for what he's done. Question 2. Psalm 30's shift from weeping to joy celebrates God's rescue. How might this transformation prompt us to reflect on the role of gratitude in recognizing God's faithfulness through seasons of suffering? So like I said, this was written after that time. And so, I mean, I'd say there's at least a decent chance that this is something that was fresh in David's mind, that he was thinking about what had happened and why it had happened as a result of what he had done. I think in that, David did have gratitude and seeing that God did pull him through. God saw him out of it. And that again kind of ties back to this idea of faith and knowing that God is going to see us through and pull us out of or pull us through situations. Not necessarily pull you out of situations, but pull you through. And reliance on Him is what gets you through. Even David in that moment, David said. So God was. I'll recap real quick. He did a census and he wasn't supposed to, and it was a lot of David was getting kind of trusting in his own ability a little bit too much. And so he did the census, and he wasn't supposed to, and so he had punishment, and so he had to choose between three things. There's one that was like, I think it was plague or something like that. There's one that was like this, like his enemies were going to come in, and they were going to be successful against him, or he could take the essentially the punishment from God directly. And David chose the punishment from God because he trusts that God's judgment is going to be just, and that's putting full trust in God there. And we saw that with David. In that situation, we saw that with David. Question 3: the Psalms' reoccurring theme of crying out in distress, as in Psalm 28. How does this practice invite us to wrestle with the tension between persistent prayer and trusting God's timing for deliverance? This kind of ties into something we've talked about. We talked about with Job a good bit. We've talked about again here recently that this is. It's not necessarily bad to call out to God. It's not bad to vent to where you pour your heart out. I'm just wearing emotions on your sleeve. To pour your heart out to God. I mean, He already knows what you're feeling. He already knows that, anyways. So why would it be bad to pour your heart out to Him in prayer? As long as you're doing it in a way where you're still keeping God as the focus. You can be unsure of a situation. You can tell God you're unsure of a situation. You don't like something going on, but you trust Him. I think there's nothing bad about that. It's actually good. I think that shows humility. I think it shows you're being humble. You're not trying to put on a show for anyone else or anything else. You're being humble and understanding where you're really at. And I think it's a good thing. And just because you're doing that doesn't mean that you're not trusting in God's timing. You can be open and honest and pour your heart out and still be trusting in God's timing. It just depends on where your focus is. So that's it for today. Appreciate everyone watching and listening up to this point. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If this has been a blessing to you, share it with somebody else. Word of mouth's the best way the podcast spreads, so you can share it with somebody else and they can start watching along and have somebody that they can do a daily Bible reading with. They can start at day 1, they can start today, anywhere in between, whatever they want to do. The whole purpose of this is just to give you someone to read along with, to help people stick with a daily Bible reading. So they read their Bible every day. It'll change your life. You will never regret it. I guarantee that. So that's what the purpose of this is. So if it's been a blessing to you, share it with other people and let them be blessed possibly by it as well. Tomorrow we'll be back in Psalms again, starting off with Psalm 31. And yeah, good stuff. So don't forget about that. It'll be fun. We'll see you then. Thanks. God bless.